Imagine waking knowing several hours of your life has simply disappeared. You have no memory and no explanation, just empty space. Then imagine discovering that the people who are with you all remember the exact same impossible event. Would you believe them, or would you question everything, including your own mind? For four friends, it was the perfect escape. Vast forests, silent lakes, hundreds of square miles where even today it's possible to travel for hours without seeing another person. Twin brothers, Jack and Jim Weiner, and their close friends Chuck Rack and Charlie Foltz were all experienced outdoorsmen. Camping trips into the Maine wilderness was nothing unusual. They knew how to survive, they knew the landscape, and perhaps most importantly, they were not looking for mysteries. During the trip, the four men spent their days fishing, exploring the lake by canoe, and enjoying the isolation. Nothing seemed unusual until one evening. As the darkness settled over Allagash Lake, they noticed something strange above the trees. At first, it appeared to be nothing more than a distant light, perhaps an aircraft or maybe a satellite. But there was something about it that immediately felt different. Instead of continuing across the sky, the light changed direction. It seemed to respond. Curious, the men climbed into their canoe. Their plan wasn't reckless. They simply wanted a closer look. As they paddled across the still water, the object appeared to grow larger and brighter. According to their later accounts, the light eventually hovered above the lake. Then, everything becomes uncertain. The next thing any of them clearly remembered, they were back on shore. Their campfire had burned almost completely away. The fire they'd left burning brightly before setting out was now little more than glowing embers. Hours had passed. Yet none of them could explain where those hours had gone. They couldn't remember paddling back. They couldn't remember returning to camp. Only one thing seemed certain: time had disappeared. For many people, that alone would have been enough to dismiss as confusion. Perhaps they'd simply lost track of time in the darkness. Perhaps exhaustion had played tricks on them. And for years, that's exactly what the four men believed. They packed up their camp and returned home, and carried on with their lives. The strange night at Allagash slowly faded into memory, or so they thought, because years later, something began happening that would transform one unusual camping trip into one of the most debated UFO cases in American history. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a forgotten evening beside a remote lake, but years later, each of the four men began remembering something they believed they'd forgotten. So what really happened at Allagash Lake? At first, the strange evening at Allagash Lake seemed little more than an unsettling memory. Four friends had watched an unexplained light. Several hours had appeared to vanish. Then life simply carried on, for years. None of the men publicly claimed they had been abducted. The experience remained little more than an unusual story from a camping trip. But that changed during the late 1980s. One by one, the four men began describing vivid dreams. They weren't ordinary nightmares. Each seemed connected to that forgotten night beside the lake. The dreams became so persistent that they eventually decided to explore them further through hypnosis. It was during those sessions that a completely new story began to emerge. According to the memories recovered, the strange light over the lake had come much closer than they originally remembered. The men described being taken aboard an unfamiliar craft. Inside, they claimed they encountered small humanoid beings, medical examinations, bright lights, and strange instruments. Each account shared remarkable similarities. To some people, that consistency made the story more believable. If four different people remembered the same extraordinary events, perhaps they really had experienced something beyond explanation. But others saw the case very differently. They pointed out that these memories had surfaced more than a decade after the camping trip itself, not immediately, but years later. That single detail has remained at the centre of the mystery ever since. Because if the memories only appeared after hypnosis, how much weight should investigators give them? It's a question that has divided opinion for decades, and the deeper researchers looked, the more complicated the story became. The memories seemed remarkably consistent, but consistency alone doesn't answer the most important question: how reliable were those memories in the first place? Every mystery has a moment when certainty begins to disappear. For the Allagash case, this is that moment. The four men never claimed they were inventing their story. In fact, they appeared completely convinced that what they remembered had really happened. But memory is a curious thing. Unlike a photograph, it isn't frozen in time. Our memories are shaped by emotion, by conversation, by the passing of years. Sometimes details become clearer. Sometimes they become blurred. And sometimes people can remember the very same event in completely different ways. That's one reason the Allagash case continues to divide opinion. Supporters argue that four independent witnesses recalling such similar events is incredibly difficult to dismiss. Skeptics point out that the memories emerged years after the original incident, during hypnosis, making them far more difficult to verify. Neither explanation answers every question, and that's what makes this case so fascinating. Whatever happened on Allagash Lake, it clearly left a lasting impression on the four men. The experience stayed with them for years, long enough for them to search for answers themselves. Yet despite decades of debate, there is still no piece of evidence capable of proving exactly what happened that night. Then, just when it seemed the mystery had settled into history, something unexplained happened. One of the four witnesses publicly changed his account. Not a small detail, not a forgotten clue, the story itself. Suddenly, people began asking a completely different question. Not, did something happen, but why would someone change their story after almost 40 years? For decades, the four men had stood together. Then one interview changed everything, and with it, the entire mystery took an unexpected turn. For decades, the Allagash abductions remained one of America's most discussed UFO cases. Books explored the mystery, television documentaries revisited the events. Researchers continued debating exactly what had happened on the remote lake in 1976. Throughout it all, the four men appeared to stand by the story that had made the case famous. Then many years later, something changed. One of the original witnesses, Chuck Rack, began looking at the events of that night very differently. By 2016, he had publicly distanced himself from the abduction account that had become central to the case. He had no longer believed the events had happened in the way he had once described. For many people, that single development changed how they viewed the entire mystery. Why would someone alter their perspective after almost 40 years? Had time changed how Chuck remembered the experience? Had he begun questioning the memories recovered through hypnosis? Or had years of reflection simply led him to a different conclusion? No one knows for certain. The remaining witnesses continued to stand by their accounts. From their perspective, nothing had changed. They still believed something extraordinary had happened on Allagash Lake. Suddenly, the mystery wasn't simply about one missing night in the Maine wilderness. It became a mystery about memory, belief, and how people try to make sense of extraordinary experiences. Whether you believe the abduction happened or not, one fact remains difficult to ignore. Four men went into the Maine wilderness together. All four experienced something they struggled to explain. Decades later, three continued to believe one version of events, one did not. And perhaps that's one of the most fascinating questions of all. Not who was right, but why did they eventually see the same night so differently? One witness changed his perspective, three never did. So after nearly 50 years, where does that leave the Allagash mystery? After nearly half a century, the Allagash case remains exactly where it began, surrounded by questions. Supporters point to 4 witnesses whose accounts shared remarkable similarities. They argue that experiences so alike cannot simply be dismissed as coincidence. Skeptics reach a different conclusion. They point to the years between the camping trip and the recovered memories. They question the reliability of hypnosis, and they ask whether extraordinary experiences can sometimes become extraordinary memories. Both sides raise important questions. Neither side answers them all. Perhaps that's why the Allagash case has endured for so long. Not because it proves alien visitation, and not because it has been completely explained away, but because it sits somewhere in between, a place where certainty becomes difficult, where evidence exists, but interpretation changes depending on who's looking at it. Maybe that's why the case still fascinates people today, because regardless of what happened over Allagash Lake, something clearly happened to those 4 men. Something significant enough that they spent decades trying to understand it. Some never changed their minds, one eventually did, and somewhere between those 2 positions, the mystery still remains. Imagine standing beside that quiet lake today. The water is still. The forests remain unchanged. The stars appeared just as they did in 1976. There is nothing to suggest that one of America's most debated UFO encounters ever unfolded there. No monument, no physical trace, only a story. 4 friends entered the wilderness expecting nothing more than a peaceful camping trip. They returned with questions they would spend the rest of their lives trying to answer. Were they remembering something extraordinary? Were they trying to make sense of an experience beyond their understanding? Or is there another explanation that nobody has considered? After examining the evidence, the witness accounts, and the questions that still surround the case, one thing becomes clear. The greatest mystery may not be whether something appeared over Allagash Lake that night. It may be why, after almost 50 years, people are still unable to agree on what happened there. And perhaps that's where this investigation ends. Not with an answer, but with another question. What do you think happened on Allagash Lake? Please let us know your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Until next time, stay curious.